Hello everyone, we're talking about the story of a little girl by Katherine Mansfield. The story is set in a town in England in the late 19th or early 20th century. KEZIA'S father goes to work in a carriage. He's a dominating male who expects to be served and obeyed. KEZIA, her mother and her grandmother, along with the servants, are answerable to her father. The little girl barely engages with her father. She stutters when she talks to him as she is in fear of him. However, things are beginning to change. Katherine Mansfield talks about the theme of family relationships. Taken from Mansfield's Something Childish and Other Stories, the story is narrated in the third person by an unnamed narrator. KEZIA'S father is a busy man, so lost in his business that he has no time for his family. Being a very disciplined man, he is strict with KEZIA to the point of harshness. He never displays any soft feelings for this little daughter, nor does he pet her for a while. All he does is give her a perfunctory kiss rather than a loving one. His presence at home frightens KEZIA, and she is relieved when he goes off to work. KEZIA, who is able to speak without stuttering to everyone else, stutters in her father's presence. Yet, in spite of all, KEZIA'S father had a loving heart and is concerned about his daughter's welfare. The main theme in The Little Girl is a young child's point of view about her father. Children take time to understand the actions of their elders. Till such time, they may look upon their parents with negativity and fear. However, as kids grow older, their attitude towards their parents undergoes a change. The theme of the story is based on the process of change that makes little children notice the soft and caring heart of their overtly strict parents. Another theme is the theme of control. Mansfield also highlights the control that the male exerts over the female. KEZIA'S father is the only male in the household, and KEZIA, her mother, and the servants in the house are answerable to her father. KEZIA is dominated by her fear of her father, and she stutters when she talks to him. Rather than having a loving relationship or a close bond with her father, she lives her life not only in fear of him, but of how he might treat her. Even though she is a child, KEZIA has duties to fulfill as soon as her father arrives home, just like her mother and the servants in the house. At all times, her father's needs must be met. None of the female characters in the story have any independence due to having to accommodate each and every need that KEZIA'S father might have. A running theme through the course of the chapter is that of interpersonal relationships and how they evolve over the course of the story. The major event is of course the way KEZIA changes in her understanding of her father and his feelings towards her. Little KEZIA at the beginning of the story watches her father timidly, unsure of how to react to the incident when her father, scolding her for her stuttering speech, left a profound effect on her, and she is more fearful of father. KEZIA realizes how wrong she was about him when father comforts her during her nightmare. She feels that father is just as alone as her in house and not the towering giant she was afraid of. KEZIA'S feelings transformed for her father when she understood his situation. Empathy to understand other people's situation in life is important when it comes to interpersonal relationships, as can be seen in KEZIA'S change of heart. KEZIA'S father tucked her in bed and lay down beside her, letting her snuggle up to him. As As he comforted her, Kezia calmed down. She realized that father was too tired because of work and couldn't play with her like Mr. MacDonald. She sympathized with him and felt he wasn't that big after all. As she listened to his heartbeat, she wasn't as afraid of her father anymore. The author's message in the story is that although there is a very strong bond between parents and children, the bond must be nurtured, otherwise children may develop fear and mistrust. It is not always easy for children to understand the true motive behind the STEM actions of their parents. Parents may at times resort to strict punishment in order to prepare their little children for the hardships of adult life. As a result, children may view them as being harsh and frightening and may develop negativity. Therefore, the story gives a strong message to both the children and the parents. Children should trust their parents and the parents should understand that fear and physical punishment can leave emotional scars. Let us talk about the characters now, the first being Kezia, the protagonist of the story. She is an emotional and sensitive girl deeply affected by her father's disciplinarian attitude. She is afraid of him because she finds him large, loud, and frightening. She is so scared that she stammers in his presence, although she doesn't do that with others. Kezia is obedient. Though she is very afraid of her father, she slowly slips down the stairs and more slowly still across the hall and pushes open the drawing room door to take off her father's boots when her mother tells her to. Kezia is innocent but impulsive. She makes a pincushion for her father as his birthday present. Kezia is quick to observe her father's affection for her on the night she is alone at home with him and is terrified by her recurrent nightmare. She feels happy when her father protectively takes her to his bed and comforts her. Her distrust for him changes into appreciation for his hard work. She admires his big heart and discovers her love for him. She changes from a resentful and frightened girl to an understanding and affectionate daughter. The next character is Kezia's father. He displays two divergent characteristics in the story. Initially, he appears as a domineering head of the family and demands complete obedience from other members. He is so distant and aloof that Katherine Mansfield does not give him a name. We know him only as Kezia's father. He has a loud voice, he wears spectacles, he looks at the little girl in a terrifying way. He appears so big and terrifying to the little girl, his hands and his neck, especially his mouth when he yawns. Father is a busy and hard-working man. He seems to have an important job and sometimes has to deliver speech as his great speech to the poor authority, so he often preoccupied. Every morning, before going to work, he comes into Kezia's room and gives her a casual kiss. Thus, despite his preoccupation, he still has time to kiss her daughter goodbye each morning. He is not a very perceptive person and is so strict with his daughter that the poor girl stutters in his presence. However, the positive aspect of his persona surfaces when he takes care of his little girl in the absence of the woman of the household. He not only carries her in his arms to his room, but also tucks her comfortably in his bed. He asks her to rub her feet with his legs to make them warm. This reveals his love and care for his dear daughter. The next character is the grandmother. Grandmother comes across as a mature and understanding person with the wisdom of age. She does not interfere in any matters of the household and simply provides background support. When KEZIA'S father punishes KEZIA with a ruler, grandmother comforts her hurt by wrapping her in a shawl and her rocking chair clinging to her soft body. She realizes this is a delicate issue and parents must discipline their children in a way they see fit. She does not question the authoritarian attitude of her son. She also realizes KEZIA is afraid of her father. So as a wise elder, she urges her young granddaughter to make effort to bond with her parents. Grandmother's supportive character can also be seen when she accompanies her daughter-in-law to the hospital. We also learn that she soothes KEZIA whenever she has a nightmare and takes her into her bed. Hence, grandmother is an important character even though she remains mostly in the background. The last character is KEZIA'S mother. She is physically weak too and in the end has to be rushed off to the hospital. We do not hear much of her except for when father returns home. She looks to his comforts and caters to his needs. She ensures he gets his paper, his slippers and his tea. Mother is not a very observant or understanding person. She does not notice or she ignores the fact that KEZIA is so scared of her father that she stutters in his presence. KEZIA'S mother comes across as a very unapproachable, aloof figure, quite unlike a loving mother a young girl desires and needs. Perhaps her ill health and her strict and domineering husband's demands leave her with very little room to pay the desired attention to her daughter. The last character is KEZIA'S mother. She is physically weak too and in the end has to be rushed off to the hospital. We do not hear much of her except for when father returns home. She looks to his comforts and caters to his needs. She ensures he gets his paper, his slippers and his tea. Mother is not a very observant or understanding person. She does not notice or she ignores the fact that KEZIA is so scared of her father that she stutters in his presence. KEZIA'S mother comes across as a very unapproachable, aloof figure, quite unlike a loving mother a young girl desires and needs. Perhaps her ill health and her strict and domineering husband's demands leave her with very little room to pay the desired attention to her daughter. Let us now discuss the highlights of the story. KEZIA'S biggest fear. KEZIA lived in constant fear of her father. She was always happy to listen to her father leave for work every day. When he returned, she would delay going down to meet him. It was her fear of her father that caused her to stutter whenever she was around him. In turn, her father would mock her stutter and threaten her with a visit to the doctor. This only filled KEZIA'S fear as she never stuttered with anyone else. Sunday afternoons. On Sundays, grandmother sent KEZIA to the drawing room for a chat with her parents. Mother would be reading while her father slept snoring on the sofa, a hanky covering his face. KEZIA sat on a stool nearby and watched him seriously. When he woke up, father scolded her not to stare, calling her a little brown owl. Once when a cold kept KEZIA indoors, grandmother suggested that the little girl should make something for her father's birthday, which was due next week. Grandmother advised KEZIA to make him a pincushion with a piece of yellow silk. KEZIA diligently started sewing the pincushion, but needed something to stuff it with. She went into mother's bedroom searching for scraps. On a bedside table, KEZIA found some fine paper which would work perfectly. Taking them with her, she shred the paper and stuffed them into the pincushion, sewing it all up. The same night there was a commotion in the house. Father had lost the speech he had prepared for the port authority. When mother asked Kezia, the little girl admitted to taking the papers. Mother dragged Kezia down to father and explained what she had done. Father ordered that Kezia be sent upstairs to her room. After a while, father entered her room and punished her, hitting her palm with a ruler. Later, her grandmother comforted Kezia. Kezia could never forget the incident. Kezia one day watched her next-door neighbors, the MacDonalds. Unlike her father, Mr. MacDonald played with his 5 children every day. Kezia watched them laugh and have fun. She realized there were all kinds of fathers. Kezia's mother fell ill one day and had to be hospitalized. Grandmother accompanied her mother to the hospital, leaving Kezia alone in the house with father and the cook Alice. As she went to bed, Kezia confided to Alice that she was scared of nightmares and the dark. Grandmother would always take her to bed and comfort Kezia during her nightmares. Alice calmed Kezia down and put her to sleep. Kezia, however, saw a nightmare of a butcher with a knife and a rope moving towards her. She awoke shivering and screaming to see father standing by her bed. When she told him of her nightmare, he picked her up and took her to his bedroom. Kezia's father tucked her in bed and lay down beside her, letting her snuggle up to him. As he comforted her, Kezia calmed down. She realized that father was too tired because of work and couldn't play with her, like Mr. MacDonald. She sympathized with him and felt he wasn't that big after all. As she heard to his heartbeat, she wasn't as afraid of father anymore. Let us now discuss the literary devices in the story, the first being transformation. Mansfield has narrated the story through KEZIA'S point of view as an innocent child struggling to understand her father's nature. Through her point of view, we see the transition from her fear to love and sympathy. The next being imagery. Father calls Kezia a little brown owl. This indicates how scared she was of him as she watched him with wide eyes. Little Kezia also views her father as a giant, and he is considerably bigger than her. The last being hyperbole. If you stutter like that, mother will have to take you to the doctor. Mother, I wish you taught this child not to appear on the brink of suicide.